Hello everybody, it's January 20th, 2012. Recently on Financial Sense Radio, they interviewed John Williams of shadowstats.com, and he said that we're heading for a hyperinflationary Great Depression as early as 2014. Now, thinking about how things will be if that actually happens that soon is horrific. I mean, things are going to be so bad. I don't even like to really think about it. I mean, a lot of the stuff I talk about on the channel is not real happy stuff to talk about. But once you understand what's going on, you look at all the stats. I mean, this guy, he looks at the stats all the time. He tracks them. I mean, this is what he sees coming from the state of the financial state of this country. Not a happy thing to think about, hyperinflation. There still are deflationists, like Robert Prechter and Harry S. Dent Jr. But what John says is you need a collapse in the money supply. And the credit crisis we had in 2008 didn't cause that. The money supply did shrink 2008, 2009, into 2010, but it's been growing the past year and a half. So everything that was done was inflationary to avoid the collapse in 2008, the trillions of dollars that were printed up. In 2002, Bernanke had that speech where he said what he would do to avoid deflation. I mean, he's already taken interest rates down near zero. He's bought tons of mortgage-backed securities, almost $1 trillion worth. He did the Operation Twist. He did the 5 things. He hasn't devalued the currency. In that speech, he glorified Roosevelt's deflation of the currency in 1933 by calling in the gold. And so that's what we might be seeing. I mean, what's his name? The pastor there, Williams. No, is that Lindsey Williams? Yeah. Recently said that we're going to see a devaluation of the dollar this year. So that's his elite buddies are telling him. Well, we'll have to see. I mean, quite possible. So what we have is John says that he sees a collapse of the purchasing power of the dollar, collapse of the economy, and the financial system as we know it. So if you want to listen to this, I'll post a link below. And he covers, him and Jim Puplava, they talk about signs of a hyperinflation. And they say that, we're going to have a loss of global confidence in the dollar would be a sign. Well, we're having that. The timeline I talked to you about that I was going to do, I'm going to just put it on the blog. It's too much to try and memorize, and I don't want to read it to you. You can read it yourself. So I'm just going to put it on the blog, but it talks about how the dollar used to have value, and then silver and gold were taken away from us. And so then they had the petrodollar. They backed it by, made agreements with Saudi Arabia and the Middle East to back it with oil, so that they had to buy it in oil. Well, a lot of different countries are moving away from the dollar now. Iran and Russia said they're not using dollars anymore. I did a video, almost has 5,000 views, on Japan and China saying they're going to trade amongst each other and not use a dollar. It's like $400 billion that they trade amongst each other in a year. You had Brazil and Argentina a couple years ago, 2 biggest economies in South America. We're not using the dollar anymore. Numerous countries. I'm going to list them all, the ones that I've come up with. Iran said they weren't going to sell oil in dollars a couple years ago, but they said that they would sell it to China and India and one other country because of their high U.S. dollar reserves. Well, they axed that now after our sanctions. They said we're not going to use dollars at all. So, Saddam said he wasn't going to he was going to sell oil in euros. We went in and took him out, and then Gaddafi said, I want to make a gold dinar and start selling oil for gold. And you know what happened to him? So I'm fearful what might happen with Iran now. But if there is something going on with Iran, I mean, you could see precious metals double. Oil's going to shoot through the roof. whatever, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But so Fed monetization of the debt would be another sign. Well, QE1, QE2, the Fed's buying a lot of the Treasury debt. We have all that happening. I guess, just a bunch of countries that are starting to avoid using the US dollar, and the dollar basically losing its reserve status. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's what all these countries not wanting to use it. If it loses its reserve status, then, everything seems to be lined up. Unfortunately, I mean, I hate thinking about this stuff. I mean, part of me hates it. Part of me is intrigued by it and wants to try and prepare. I mean, best ways to prepare throughout history is gold and silver for a hyperinflationary event. You want to have a food supply. You want real stuff. You don't want to be in the dollar. If you go in and you buy a bottle of wine, and by the time you're done eating dinner, the bottle's worth more than it was when it was full. Just crazy stories like that. I mean, just things going up so fast because the dollar is dropping so fast in value. Most people have no idea. They can't even imagine a hyperinflation happening in the United States of America. They don't pay attention to the finance. I mean, on my last video, someone said, it's too complicated for some people. Yeah, I guess it is. I mean, but it's not real complicated to see, okay, we got 15.2 trillion in national debt. Okay, well, that's not going to be easy to get away from, especially when we're adding 1.5 trillion a year to it. I mean, all this stuff about the deficit reduction group they put together, and they couldn't even come up with any type of agreement. They're not going to start. We can't, tighten our belt by $1 trillion. Politicians, they don't want to start taxing anybody. They'll lose votes. I mean, things are headed down the wrong road, and that's it. There's no turning around, folks. I mean, we just have to prepare for what's coming, unfortunately. And I'm going to also I talked to Peter Schiff one day on his radio show. I asked him some questions about using junk silver in an economic collapse type situation. If you're interested in hearing what he said about that, I'm going to link the video to the Moneybags World blog, and I'll put a link to that below. I'll say the Schiff interview. So anyway, have a good weekend, everybody, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.